Good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday, or as I like to call it now, Friday Eve. It is, oh, Greg saying you're on. I always wait a second till I know I'm on before I say anything. So maybe I just sit here, maybe you all sit here before, sit here and watch me for a second, just glare. But until I know that I'm getting something on Twitch, I don't even start recording yet for the YouTube stream. So that's why I start with a stare if you're watching on Twitch. Otherwise, you have no idea I'm staring. But anyway, so welcome to welcome to Thursday, which is our Thursday night review session of Living for Crits. I am Judge James, and as I've done the last several weeks, I am going solo tonight for a review of the In at 5 Points by Brendan LaSalle, which is the 2019 convention module for Dungeon Crawl Classics. I went with that choice because the last two things I've reviewed were pretty hefty. You know, starting with the DCC Lankmar core box set and then moving on over to the Sunken City Omnibus. This is a 12-page module. So you might be surprised to hear I have just as much written about this module, probably because I really enjoy this module a lot and I have a lot of great things to say about it. And hopefully at the end of this, I point some of you in the direction of this module as well, and it's something you pick up, whether you pick it up for Dungeon Crawl Classics or you want to convert it over to something else you enjoy. If that's 5th edition, I think it'd be a very easy conversion, or Pathfinder, or whatever you play, because everyone plays something different anymore, it seems like. You got a bunch of people playing this what is it, Morkborg? I don't know, Muckborg? Mukbang? What is it? I don't know what it's called. It sounds like it's by, the Swedish Chef to me. So, but that's an OSR game that's out right now. What's not OSR is my shirt. I realized that I wanted something somewhat fitting for the evening, and I found my old 3rd edition shirt, which is interesting because right before I started recording, I went to my bookshelves and was looking for, do I have any 3rd edition stuff? And I do. I only have like 7 or 8 3rd edition books, and they're all the 3rd edition Lankmar. It's not even 3rd edition. Technically, it's D20 system Lankmar stuff. Not Lankmar. Why did I say Lankmar? Ravenloft. Did I seriously say Lankmar? I did. I must have Lankmar on the brain. I'm looking at Lankmar right here. My 3rd edition Ravenloft stuff. I better get it together. This is going to be a rough night. This is the only 3rd edition crap I have left. If you don't know, my friends know this. When I'm done with systems and settings, I tend to sell them. That if I didn't, I would have double this amount of stuff. But all my 3rd edition stuff, 4th edition stuff, 3.5, it's all gone. A lot of my Star Wars stuff, I tend to keep the most recent stuff and some select things I really enjoy. But other than that, it kind of goes out. And I trade it in. I sell it. I give it away. And I convert it into dollars for something else. For instance, 4th edition paid for all of my Savage Worlds and Numenera stuff. So Greg says all of his gaming t-shirts fell apart. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, that sucks. I've been fortunate in that this one is held up, although it's not in the best shape. It looks grayish now. It's not like the pitch black it came out of when I got it from Target. Because Target has D&D shirts, or at least they had D&D shirts in like the mid-2000s. All right, well, on to the review. So I'll get things moving here. So my rules for these reviews, I've been trying to keep to some rules, are that it has to be a product I own, a product I've read, a product I've run or used at the table. And I say that because there's some other stuff it's not there's one thing I'm going to talk about as maybe a potential future review that's not a product it's not an adventure. But it has to be something I've actually used. And only then will I review it. I'm not going to give something a cursory read and then give you a review. It has to be something I've done something with, which means at some point I may run out of stuff to review. So I better keep running adventures, right? And playing games. So tonight we are doing In at 5 Points. But before we go into this, if you are watching live and you have anything you'd like me to review for next week, or if you're watching on YouTube, I'm not going to make the decision until later this week of what I'm going to review next week. So if you're watching and you want me to review something that's on that shelf or that I've played, let me know. And if I have it and I want to review it, because maybe I won't want to review it. I don't know. Maybe you'll say something that's on my shelf I don't feel like reviewing. Like, I'm not in a big Space 1889 mood, and I do own that, and I have played with it, but I don't want to review that next week. So no one say Space 1889. Not that I don't have a fondness for Space 1889. I haven't played it much, actually. I've actually only played it in Savage Worlds. Anyway, so go ahead. Now that I've told you all, don't bother telling me things to review. I might not review them, but tell me things to review. I'll give you some options of things I'm thinking about, and then I'll talk about them. But definitely comment below or post it in the Twitch stream, and I might talk about it next week or in the future when I'm in a mood to do it. All right, so the In at 5 points. At a glance, this is a second level adventure by Brendan LaSalle, edited by Dak Ultimac. The cover art is William Mccasland. The cartography is William Mccasland. The interior art is William Mccasland. He was very busy for this module. Bradley McDevitt and Stephen Pogue. There's actually, I really like, well, so this is a great cover. I got a thing for Stephen Pogue's black and white stuff though, and this is a great picture on the inside. Partially because my name and Evie's name are in here as playtesters, and partially because I really like his art style. So it's more than just that. I love black and white art. Some of my favorite gaming art is all black and white. I think because some of my early books were all in black and white. So this adventure here is just 12 pages. And even page 12 is your open gaming license sheet. And then the end of it, the back, is the We're With the Band. If you don't know, if you're not a big DCC player or judge, at the end of every Goodman Games module, there's the We're With the Band image. And typically, I think always the band, the adventurers rotate, and whoever's in the adventure module. So this kind of leads you towards Goodman Games and where to find more of their awesome swag. So this module is only 12 pages. So why would you get it? Why go through the trouble of there's other modules out there with so much more meat. This module here packs a ton into 12 pages. And it's a boon, not a detriment that it's 12 pages. This is a convention module. That means this is designed for a 3 to 4 hour game slot. You could expand it into a second session if you do some fleshing out of certain scenes. And what's great is that Brendan puts a lot of scenes in here that you could flesh out. But it reminds me of a much more fleshed out version of the side track adventures that were in the old Dungeon magazines in the 90s or the early 90s when I had a subscription to the Dungeon magazine. And this is the kind of product that makes you really appreciate being a Goodman Games fan. It's not just an adventure. There's a spell in there, like a brand new spell for clerics, and there are recipes in this. Actual recipes that you can cook that I think I'm going to have to make one of these, at least one. I may have to convert it to a vegetarian recipe. I don't eat meat. My wife and I are vegetarian, so there is a recipe for a lamb stew that I may turn to a seitan stew. So we'll see how that turns out. And I think there's a recipe, there's a vegetarian quinoa dish in here as well. I'll go through the recipes in a few minutes here when I get to those. But just the fact it has those little tidbits make this a really great adventure. And and because it is a shorter adventure, you know, it's something you can just have on your shelves. You can just have a knowledge of the adventure, read it in a half an hour, and then you've got it down and you can run it. This is just great for those kind of nights where you just want something to do. Maybe you're in the pandemic still. Hopefully you're not all watching this in the future, and some of you are watching this right now. And should I be hoping people are in the pandemic? If you're in the pandemic and you're trying to get more online gaming, this could be a great module for you. I do have a special connection to this adventure, as I was a playtester for it along with Judge Evie. On 2 occasions, I was a player with Judge Evie at Save Against Fear 2018 at Brendan LaSalle's table. And then about a month or 2 afterwards, I ran a playtest session of it for our DCC road crew It was maybe a month or two afterwards, and we got to have it as part of our campaign. We were running games at the time at the Games Keep in Westchester, Pennsylvania. So I do have a fondness for this adventure, and I'm very happy that I've picked it up. The in at 5 points is second level, but you could easily scale it down to first level or up to third or fourth with some minor modifications, maybe adding some more monsters in here. It is a core DCC native adventure, which means it has a fantasy setting, but it's not particularly for what's it called, for any setting that's already in print. You could set it somewhere in Nawan, perhaps the land of the 8 cities for Lankhmar. So on the across that sea on the other side of Lankhmar, or you could put it in the Shutter Mountains if you're running the Chain Coffin box set. If you add some mutations, maybe, and some MCC action awaits you here. Greg's asking, can the inn be used after the adventure ends? Man, big spoiler there. Let's just say you might want to do some work on the inn after the adventure, because the adventure really takes place in the inn. And without too many spoilers, the inn does not end up the same way it starts. But you could use it before the adventure, which we kind of did, and you could use it as maybe seed a future adventure with this location. It's a great locale. It's got some nice details in there. So, but if you want, if you bring some carpenters and some thatchers for the roof, maybe you can rebuild the inn. Not saying it's like totally destroyed, but it has an interesting history after the adventure ends. There are spoilers ahead, so I guess I should toss it out. If you plan on playing this adventure, stop watching. I think that should be said for most of these reviews. I will be pretty much reviewing these from a judge's perspective, a GM's perspective, to translate. The DCC GMs tend to call themselves judges, I think, because it makes us feel more powerful. I don't know. It just, it's a name that's stuck, right? All right, this adventure, so spoilers. All right, now stop watching if you're a player. Now judges can keep watching. All right, one thing this adventure does really well, there's a lot of things well, is how it starts. The in at 5 points, by the name you'd think, oh, we're starting in a tavern. You don't. You start in the woods. The adventure starts in media res. The GM is encouraged to start out with roll initiative, which is how Brendan started it, roll initiative. And we all had to roll initiative, and boom, we're in combat. We're in a battle. We're fighting. What are we fighting? We're so confused playing this adventure. And, that whole first scene, that starts with an uptick of action. And while you don't have to run it that way, as a con or a road crew game, it's such a different feeling than having that slow build-up. I've been in so many road crew or convention games, or as a player or as a judge, where any convention game, it could be DCC, Numenera, Savage Worlds, any convention game, usually you start playing, you're introducing your characters, 10, 15 minutes go by, you're doing something, the plot has been revealed to you. At least the mission has, and maybe a half an hour to 40 minutes in, you're beating something up. Within 30 seconds, you are throwing dice in this game, and that sets up some great action, and plus it moves the game along. Now there's a bit of a lull, not like a boring lull, but after the first combat, some more is revealed to your characters, and they understand what they're supposed to be doing, and they end up at the inn at 5 points, which is a fully fleshed out inn and tavern. Can I show the map? 5 points. I can't. I can show part of the map. How about that? There we go. So 5 points is is like not quite a village. It's just an inn, a farmhouse, a horse and tack, building, a longhouse, another farmhouse. It's just a place that you can have and set anywhere in your setting, anywhere that you have 5 roads meeting. That is that would make sense, right? Did I have the math right? Yeah, pretty much. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 roads are meeting. That makes sense. And anywhere you have that happening or have a reason for that happening, not that all the roads have to lead to a city. Maybe they lead to, one leads to a large farm or estate or something like that. You could put that there. I set it in my campaign northeast of the great city that was where the Sunken City omnibus took place. I had the part of my campaign setting where there was the what's it called, Shadow Under Devil's Reef, where that takes place on the far eastern side of this continent I had drawn out, and then the southern side was the Great City, and then somewhere between there was where the inn at 5 points was located. The inn has the map has a lot to flesh out on your own if you want. If you want to add interesting NPCs in the farmhouses, you can. If you want to do more with the NPCs in the tavern, you can. But as the adventure progresses in the inn, things happen and go down where the events in the inn become very hectic and crazy, and the adventure takes place in that action. What's really great with this adventure is that you could the part about becoming here for solace to rest and recuperate. And if they haven't rested yet or recuperated yet, and they've done some spell burn, maybe they're low on luck, you're running Lankmar and you can have them regain their luck. Whatever's going on to this party, you could start this adventure off with them in a weakened state. Especially if they're higher than second level, that might be a way to balance this adventure, is to run it when the party's trying to rest after a really tough adventure for third, fourth, or even fifth level characters. They're weak. Some of the wizards have forgotten some spells. The cleric's a lot of disapproval. They want to rest, and boom, this adventure happens. So that would be something to do if you're running this, for your campaign. The plot definitely turns the scene on its head, starting the adventure out prior to in media res, in the middle of the action, and then having the adventure take place in and around the inn. That's not typically what you see in a campaign or in an adventure. You start in the tavern maybe for the stereotypical adventure. You end up later in the dungeon and you come back to the tavern. This is the exact opposite of that. So it's just different, and I love that. I love any adventure where it takes some of the classic tropes and flips them around or makes them unexpected. There's multiple ways to end the adventure. There are the big bad in the end, or you can defeat it in several ways. You don't have to just go in one route. The plot itself, you don't feel railroaded, even though there's not a lot of set pieces to deal with. If you think about it in a 3 to 4 hour adventure, and if you were really dealing with understanding the rules in the beginning of the game, if it's new players, figure it like if the Cyclops Con was 3 hour adventures. That's what we did a couple weeks ago with the Goodman Games Cyclops Con. They all 3 hour slots. And you figure the challenge there is in 3 hours, if every combat can take 20 to 30 minutes, because DCC combat's pretty quick, and you want to have 3 action scenes, that's going to be half of your game. A fourth action scene or a big scene at the end. I've seen final battles in DCC take 45 minutes, for a big epic final battle. And if that's happening, you really need that adventure to move quickly. But you don't want it to feel like it's on rails either. Because this adventure flips things around for you by introducing the set piece of where most of the action is going to take place, B, where you're headed to originally, and then having the game start out with action, it's a very efficient adventure. So it's efficient in its use of space and its use of the 12 pages. It's also efficient in the use of time for your players. Other convention modules, I want to think that the 2017 module or 2018 module was Blood for the Serpent King, I believe it was, which is the adventure I ran 2 adventures after this. That's a considerably longer adventure that took us actually 2 sessions to get through. This does not take that much time. Not that you couldn't, again, add to it. So the adventure also has more, like I said earlier, than just the text. It also has a new spell called Hell Rats. That's a fun spell. Stats for Hell Rats and Rat Devils and a Hell Rat Swarm. And it's got the in at 5 points cookbook. So if you want to do some cooking with some of these ingredients that were, I'm going to guess these are these all Brendan's ingredients? I'm going to guess they are. So there's 5 points rosemary garlic bread. There is 5 points spicy lamb stew. That's the one that I think I can add seitan to and serve over rice. There's the Lucky Traveler, which is vegan. It's pretty cool that the in at 5 points has a vegan option. And there's the oatmeal cream stout. I am probably not going to even attempt to make beer because I think I would destroy that. I'm not a brewer. I know one. There are the stats in here, or the stats. There's a bill of fare in the adventure for how much everything costs. Like stew and bread costs 4 copper. Bread's just 1 copper. That's a good deal. Pint of ale is 1 copper. Also a good deal. There's no recipe for the pipe tobacco that was listed. Oh well. But to have that in the back, that's just fun. It just gives you something else to play with, even if it's just a way to enjoy the adventure as a fun read. So overall, my final grade, surprise, surprise, I'm giving it an A+ because I think this is a awesome module that it values your time in the best possible way. Especially, it does what it says it's going to do. It's a convention module. It's a great module to have on your shelf for con season and road crew events, pick-up games with friends or online associates, or something to run between longer modules. If you want to string 2 adventures together, have a place to take a break, and then go back to a large adventure, you can have it happen at the in at 5 points. And it's a twist on how most modules start and progress. So, and it's memorable. So, which is the best part. I still remember it fondly both times I've run it. I'm looking forward to running it again. It's an adventure I will probably run quite a few times before I end up hanging it up. Because I don't run adventures. Usually I'll retire them about after 2 or 3 times I run them. This one's probably going to stay in my arsenal for a while. So, Greg says, cheap eats and quick death. That is how DCC is. All right, so wrapping up, would love to hear some feedback for what we're going to review next week. I have some options here. I'm just going to show them what I was thinking about. One thing we could do is I have a couple copies of Sailors in the Starless Sea, which is the quintessential, this is the most DCC of DCC adventures. You see I have the Clásicos del Mazmorra poster board, the Spanish version of this over there hanging up. This is Harley Stroh's Level 0 adventure that for many DCC players, this is their first or second adventure they've played, and many DCC judges, it's their first or second adventure they've run. I have been involved with this adventure as a player, or I've played it multiple times as a player, and I have GM'd it at this point close to a dozen times. I've GM'd it as in Dungeon Crawl Classics. I've GM'd it in Mutant Crawl Classics. I've GM'd it backwards. I remember hearing someone had done that before, Reverse Sailors. I have done the Reverse Sailors. I have my own take on it. I have carved out pieces of the middle of it to run it in a 2-hour time slot. I have done it with miniatures. I have done it with the Cypher system as a Cypher adventure. And I had stuff I was going to do for Savage Worlds once, but never got around to doing that. I have all kinds of notes inside this one. This one here is all marked up. There's stuff written on the sides. I also have a clean, Atari version of the adventure. It's got a bit more meat to it. It's got some additional art. It's got some original map sketches in here by Harley Stroh when he was drawing out the adventure before Doug Kovacs did the amazing details of it. I love this module, and this would give us a chance to talk about something classic in the most classic of Dungeon Crawl Classics modules. Another option to keep things classic would be to discuss a product that I've used, and that would be the Dungeon Alphabet, which is a chart, an A to Z chart of random things that can occur in your games. So this could be a fun tool. I love these tools that give you random options if you're on the hunt for running something quickly or something on the fly, and you're stumped because your players have messed with your adventure. This is a great product for any. This is system neutral, so for any system, this is great. It's still Goodman Games. I had considered talking about Grimtooth's Museum of Death, which was the first Grimtooth adventure, or my first experience with anything Grimtooth related. And I love this adventure. This is a level 1 adventure that is deadly for up to level 10 characters. Don't go with the level. This adventure is brutal. It's one of the first DCC adventures I've purchased, and I've run this about 4 or 5 times. And finally, I think this will, if anyone's going to vote, this may get the vote. This will be a long review, but this is the Peril on the Purple Planet box set for Dungeon Crawl Classics. I think it's out of print right now, but this is the epic Harley Stroh box set on the Purple Planet itself. The science fantasy adventure of adventures. It's a great John Carter of Mars feel to it, but it's alien and bizarre. Got some Dune in there. I've run this box set. I have completed the campaign with my players. It took us about 1.5 years, and this is a great adventure. So those are some options of things for next week. If no one says anything, I'll probably pick one of those or something totally different. Who knows? So if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I have to say thank you so much. Finally, after 5 years, Living for Crits has hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So we are, in 5 more years, we'll have 2,000 subscribers. If we keep doing this long enough, we may have 100th the subscribers of like some of the big name people. But the cool thing is you all interact with us, and we love that. So we're not here to try to become the biggest thing. Otherwise, I'd have better set design and better editing, and I don't. It's just me and Evie talking in front of a camera, and it's about as advanced as we're ever going to get. So I'm sorry. This is what you have if you're coming over and watching our channel. So have a great night. Stay safe out there in COVID land. Be careful, be kind to one another, and we will see you on Sunday when Judge Evie and I don't know what we're talking about. Depends on how many questions she gets at dccjudgeevie@gmail.com. So, all right, have a great night. Take it easy.